How was it for you guys continuing to push this brand forward while, the face of the brand not being present anymore? Like, how was that for you guys?
It's very challenging, because Nipsey was so influential in a lot of decision making. And obviously, he would help, steer the ship in a lot of things. But I think he gamed a lot of it, his team up. It wasn't like but everybody just sat there and Nip, educated himself. He made sure to educate his team, and make sure that we were resourceful. And he built a team that is adaptable. Now, does that mean we get it right all the time? No.
This is Branded Like a Pro.
Hey guys, what's going on? I'm your brand guy, Denis Boateng, and this is Branded Like a Pro, where we talk about branding without the boring. And we use sports, culture, and then we also talk to experts from different industries to talk about branding. And today we have an amazing guest, that being my guy, Jorge Peniche, in the building. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, brother? Appreciate you for having me.
Yes, man. Hey, look, I want to thank you for your time first and foremost. I hit you up and you responded quickly, like,
Easy call,
let's do this. Before we get into everything, bro, I just want to just quickly talk about just kind of what we do here. I know I shared with the guests, but I think that branding is such an important thing for people to understand and relate to their lives. Just because it's everywhere, you know what I mean? Sure. You literally can't step out the door. You're home. Just everything you interact with is branding. So when I saw what you were doing, of course, I've known about you for a very long time. I was like, yo, like, I need to holler at Jorge, man. Like, this is a conversation that needs to happen. Just because I know that your affiliation, the people that you work with, the legendary work that you've done as well, that people are familiar with, I think that it needs to be talked about, like the behind the scenes, the breakdown of things, like your mentality behind it. So without further ado, I do want to ask you to let people know who is Jorge Peniche, bro?
Jorge Peniche is, I coined the term. It's called professional day laborer.
Okay.
Because I wear many different hats, and I take on all the tasks that I put on go across my desk. But I would like to say a multidisciplinary talent, a person that works off of intuition and also tries to be a sponge and learn every day. I don't think I know everything, but I look to, learn every day, and that's it. Do the best I can do and bring, make something a little bit better than before I even touched it or interacted with it.
Yeah, that's amazing. But professional day laborer is perfect.
That's it, and that's a little nod, to our immigrant brothers and sisters, that got to figure it out because that's what we do every day.
Facts. That's we talked about that hustle as immigrants, and I want to actually touch on that too, like just being multifaceted and multidisciplinary and wearing different hats, because you were Nip's photographer, graphic designer for the Marathon clothing, but also you was his road manager too.
Right.
Like, of course, people want to know, like, what was that relationship? Where did it begin? Like, how did you fall into all these roles, through the relationship that you had with Nip?
Sure. So, I mean, I would be remiss not to say how we met. And the internet had a big role in our introduction.
Yeah.
And so around this time, we're talking about 2006, 2007, 2008, MySpace was the Instagram, of that time, and it was a pioneer. It was the first time, people could connect, or it was very easy for people to connect on the internet, online, and have an identity. It wasn't anonymous.
Yeah.
Although some people probably didn't have a profile picture. But I say this all to say, one of my good friends who did music at the time under the moniker of Mr. Don't Know, his name's Will. He introduced me to Nipsey's music and gave me Bullets Ain't Got No Name Volume 1. And I listened to Volume 1 and was just like completely blown away. The music felt as much as it felt nostalgic, it felt brand new. It felt like a fresh take. It felt like an update on what was currently happening in the streets of LA. and it felt very introspective. It felt like it wasn't trying to like add extra scoops to the story or glamorize anything or sensationalize everything. It was just raw and uncut, and I was intrigued. And so that was my first introduction to Nip. Following that, I do a deep dive into his brand and look at the photography. I look at the videos. At the time, he had a series on World Star. That was really good. I looked at the music videos at the time. Jordan Towers on World Star was doing all the videos, so I would watch the videos there, watch the interviews, and I was completely enamored, by how intelligent he was and how talented he was also as an artist. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of things that I that attracted me to reach out to him. So at the time, I'm doing freelance editorial photography and writing for publications domestically and overseas. And so I thought maybe that was I thought through those two skill sets and those two platforms would be the appropriate like olive branch to extend. That would make sense for him to, for us to build a relationship, or at the very least do some work. And as a photographer, I saw, an opening in terms of like being able to give my visual iteration or my visual contribution to a story. Even if it was for that single chapter, it would have been fine for me, but by the grace of God, it was more than that. And so Nip, I reached out to Nip via MySpace, just saying, introducing myself and letting him know that I work with these publications and these platforms are available to him, and I'd love to work in whatever capacity we can. He reached out. Actually, it might have not even been Nip. It might have been our brother Adam who reached out because he was managing his page. So it might have been one of the two, but nonetheless, there was correspondence, and he invited me to the music video shoot for Hustle in the House.
That's actually the first video that I was introduced to Nipsey. I remember
a lot of people,
on World Star.
Major. So, I head down to Crenshaw and Slauson with my boy Weddle, who's a well-known tattoo artist in LA. And, it's just a sea of people, congregating on Crenshaw and Slauson. Virtually every car, passing by, cars, motorcycles, playing Bullets and Got No Name Volume 1 or 2 or a song of Nip.
Movie.
So I said, wow, I had never seen nothing like that. And prior to that, I've worked with other artists, that are household names today. But I hadn't witnessed that in their environment, So that was pretty unique to me. And that's not to take away, by the way, anything from anyone else, but it was just like, I was really like, wow, this guy is the real deal, as expected. And then maybe 15 or 20 minutes, after I arrived there, Nipsey pulls up into the Shell gas station right there on Crenshaw and Slauson in a white Bentley, and he hops out, and, everybody's trying to get his attention, and he can't, at some point he came directly to me, we shook hands, introduced, ourselves to one another. And to me, that was very telling because literally everyone is there for him. And we don't know each other. We have no rapport, so he went out of his way. So that's the kind of person he always was, and so that was our intro. And we're talking now 2008. Between 2008 and 2010, we worked on several editorial, one-off projects. 2008, 2009, we worked on the repackaging for Bullets Ain't Got No Name Volume 3 because he had done an original cover that was shot in New York and that he didn't feel like visually represented what he wanted it to represent. So we went back, to the hood, South Central, and we shot, at his mother's, in the backyard of his mother's home, childhood home. A couple other like landmark locations that made sense to the story and what he was talking about in the music. And we were off to the races. Now we were collaborating more. Latter part of 2010, November 2010, this time he reaches out to me, and says, hey, I have this opportunity. I have this studio on Wilshire and Alvarado right by MacArthur Park in LA. And I have two studios. I have two music studios. One's my studio. Another one is for the squad. But there's this third space that just became available that's right next to the squad studio. And I don't know, I would love to sit down with you and see if it's maybe a space that we can share. And also collaborate. And so I took the opportunity, of course. He didn't have to convince me much. Whether I could afford the studio space or not, I wasn't quite sure. I was freelancing at the time, but, I was going to figure out a way to make it work. And, from those initial conversations came, opportunities to collaborate, not only just share a space, but to collaborate. And his prime focus at the time was, his departure, of his former label, which was Epic Records, and going back indie, which a lot of people thought was pretty crazy because, everyone's goal from our generation, was to get signed and want to get a record label or record deal, and that's supposed to, shoot you, to the trajectory that you're supposed to be in. And he opted to do it a different way because he wanted to control, his brand and the narrative around his brand. And at the time, from our conversation, he's like, with Bullets Ain't Got No Name, Volume 1, 2, 3, he knew what he was trying to do, but the visual representation of that was you go to the website and Nip pops up, like a flash video, and then the bullet casings fall out, spill out on the side of the page. And that was only one thing and a couple other things that he didn't necessarily agree with, how he was being presented. And so what I feel, and it is an easy mistake, for a label or anyone that doesn't understand or doesn't look to understand artists, is that, especially coming from LA and from the West Coast and coming from LA, from South Central, from Compton, from Long Beach, is that they're hyper focused on the gang aspect of it.
On the gang culture.
Because that worked before in the 90s. It was an easy alley-oop. And now it's like, no, we got to pull back a little bit. And it's like, with Nip, you pull back and you get to see, like, whoa.
A different side of it,
like, intellect, a father, entrepreneur, a brother, a family man, someone that, was a risk taker, radical, that went against the grain, somebody that, was empathetic, to other people's experiences. And so when you pull that back, you're like, you open up a whole can of worms, a good one at that, because now you start to see a lot more people can identify with that. And that was honest. You don't have to make it up. It's not like you have to change or anything. That's just the person he was. And it was just, if for photographer's sake, you have the macro lens and then you start pulling back. If you have a zoom lens from your 70 to 24, you get to see a lot more of the picture. And that's what we got to see. And so, with Nip, started off with the, the branding and photography. And then around 2014, 2013, 2014, he's, the opportunity of doing the tour management, presented itself. And I kind of like shied away from the opportunity because I didn't want it to interfere with our creative endeavors, namely the photography, because the photography was photojournalism. It's fly in the wall style. And so if I take on that role, now I'm in the frame.
That's true.
And that's a conflict for what we were developing in terms of his visual branding. But I guess he saw, that he saw that my certain like administrative matters that I handled with my business as an artist, could somehow plug into what he was doing. And I had zero intentions or idea of playing that role. But when presented with it, and when things made sense, and I saw maybe I could potentially juggle the both roles as a creative and also administrative of certain business affairs of his. We made it happen. And I mean, the first show that we had, man, it was, I have no experience as a tour manager, zero. And that's not to say that it's rocket science, because I'm not here to like oversell it. But it's definitely a lot of like people skills. You're
catering to someone's personal brand, making sure that it stays like alive, that it's showing up how it's being, put out.
And we're at this point, we're indie, so we're dealing with independent promoters. So you deal with people with all walks of life, different personalities. This particular show at Warehouse Live in Houston, was probably the biggest test I could have had for a first show, other than LA, because they're neck and neck, like with as the biggest markets, for Nip. And so Warehouse Live is like, I don't know, it's like 2,500 standing room space, so it's a ton of people came out. All of Rap A Lot Records came out, the whole crew, and a couple other homies we got out there that we're tapped in with. And so now I'm like, man, this is a lot of people to try to like, navigate through. Let me get to this promoter.
Yeah.
Our policy was anytime we touch down before any show, we got to collect the back end deposit. And so I'm looking for the promoter. I finally track him down in a green room, and I say, man, let's take care of the business. So before Nip touches any mic or hits any stage, we gotta make sure the business is right.
That's right. Yeah.
And so the guy, hands me a wad of cash, and I'm like, whoa, let's count it. Like, we're not racing here.
And we
gotta make sure it's right. We're counting. And it's like different bills, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s. Later on, we changed it to a policy of only hundreds, so it's easier to count.
Yeah.
But this was an experience in coming in. This was like, practice in real time.
Yeah.
And so the guy, doesn't have all the money. And so he races back and forth to the front of the house, to the ticket booth to bring back cash and bring back cash and bring back cash until he finally has the full, back end amount.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a learning experience, a learning lesson, right? Because now it's like, okay, we got to figure out how to not have this issue.
That's right.
And so maybe instead of collecting the money at the show, we collect it at the hotel. We collect it at the airport, prior. And we make sure, in the contract, we make some adjustments that, you can't give us 5, 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s. Granted, it's all good money, but it's not easy to count. And when you're in emotion, just give the 100s. Let's try to do it, a little bit cleaner. So, yeah, man. I mean, the tour management was definitely something I didn't like anticipate, or I didn't have like on my vision board, so to speak. But it's definitely an amazing experience because it also gave us a license as an independent company to bring me on as a photographer, and document where I could. Mm-hmm. Although, granted, my time was divided, so whereas if I would have just came solely as a photographer, as I did in like the Crenshaw tour that we did in 2014, I was strictly, just for the most part, photography. And also we set up like our stage, so I would help with that. So now, it's kind of just finding the proper balance, to make sure you don't miss those moments. Mm-hmm. And we did that for the longest. Until probably like 2017, 18, we brought on a videographer, a guy, Norby, and he started taking stills as well. So that kind of relieved some of that responsibility from me. And I mean, there's literally, I had to pinch myself because of the places we would go to, the people that we would, interact with, with Nip. And the best part of everything was just the camaraderie, on the road amongst brothers and everybody having a good time, and we're doing something that we enjoy. We enjoy each other's company, breaking bread with one another, clowning at airports, literally it's nonstop laughter, jokes, misadventures. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the business was handled.
That's good. Now that's good. Like even with you just walking through all of that, it makes me think about on the branding aspect of things. Obviously, you've seen a lot, you experienced a lot of stuff. A lot of times, you just kind of thrown to the wolves because Nick just saw, hey, bro, I see something in you that we may not have tapped into yet. But when did you come to understand what branding meant to you while being involved with all these things? Like, what did what was that moment like for you?
I think it came even before being involved in all these things. I just think. Like to the point that you made earlier, like we interact with brands every day. Yeah. From the moment, we turn on our TV or our phone or our computer, or, we walk out the door, we're seeing brands left and right, and there's different things that, attract us to these different brands. Yeah. And so, since I was a kid, I've always, to this day, I love basketball. Mm-hmm. One of the most polarizing figures is Michael Jordan. Yeah. So, to have witnessed, Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand, in its rise in real time it's hard to parallel with any other brand and with athletes. Yeah. I mean, that's why his name is still synonymous with greatness. No, that's true. And there's no one else that has that, whose brand has that power. Mm-hmm. And so when I was 12, 13, 14, I would buy sneakers, the ones that I could. And I think it was when I was 14, 15, I had the wild idea of getting the Jordan 17s that came in a case. Yeah, and when Mike was was playing for the Wizards. Yeah. And so it was a dope colorway too. It was a change of pace. It was white and royal with accents of black, like black and silver. Yeah. And so I naively asked my working class immigrant parents, you know, like, hey, can we buy these shoes? I wasn't working at the time. They go there, try them. We go to Foot Locker, try them on. You know, they fit amazing. And I said, oh, these are it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
So
it's prime time. Like, let's go.
Tag.
And so we checked the price, $200. Parents said, you know, we can't really swing that. You know, no disrespect. And I said, I understand it, you know. And so from there, my wheels started turning, like, how can I get my sneakers?
Yeah.
And so I went into buying and reselling sneakers. By the way, nothing like kids do today now. I've been seeing TikToks where kids just negotiate for $8,000, a whole table $20,000, and they just cash out. Nothing like that. I'm like, you know, amateur hour in comparison to that, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, some people had to crawl before they could, you know, walk, and before you could walk, or you had to walk before you could run. I was crawling. You know, so when it comes to that, I started learning branding because the platform that I would use was eBay. And so I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, everyone in this marketplace is selling the exact same thing. What they call in branding a USP, unique selling point.
That's right.
And so I looked at what can I do so I can get the edge on the people selling the exact same product I am.
Yeah.
And so with sneakers was presentation, who had the cooler photos, who in the internet, we're talking, you know, 20 years ago, who can prove that they actually have this and it's tangible, right? Because this now you buy stuff very loosely on the internet on your phone. Before you go to sleep, you go on Amazon, you order something.
No, that's
but we're talking about 20 years, you know, it was like the wild west of the internet and e-commerce, where you're like, are they gonna steal my identity? Is my credit card gonna get frauded? Am I gonna get worked? You know, for my money? Am I gonna get fake sneakers? Because we're talking. So photos, how can you know, branding, how can you know, visually, how can you prove that it's authentic, that you're trustworthy? That's your reputation on eBay. So my idea was, that's kind of where the photography came about. It was product photography of all things. It wasn't portrait photography. It wasn't landscape. It was product photography. And so my wheels started turning there when I started to like strategize and started implementing different, you know, strategies of mine that I started to see would give me a competitive edge against people selling the exact same product. And I also learned how to snipe on eBay. I don't know if it's still a thing, but people would misspell like the sneaker name. So like if instead of Nike Air Jordan 1, I remember this one in particular, someone would spell Air JRDN or something, like abbreviated. And so no one would be able to find it. So I would search all of these things. And I bought like a crispy brand new, you know, dead stock Air Jordan 1, like the first retro, for like $80. Dang. And so little things like that. Oh, also another point, right? Like with sneakers, I bought the Jordan 11s, the Columbias, the white and blue. And so those were like really sought after. I mean, I know the Jordans at this point have been retro to death. But then, you know, it was like a lot more limited. And so I realized how important branding was here, where I bought, you know, from a site that didn't have that, you know, or from a buyer that didn't have the best photos, but had that, like the raw product was there. And I might have bought them for like $180, and I resold them for $700.
Dang, bro.
The exact same product.
Yeah,
the exact same product. So that's telling of the right photos, the right presentation, and a good reputation. You know, makes a big difference in selling the exact same product.
No, that's good.
So that, you know, that's kind of where the gear started turning. Then I started doing on eBay. I started drop shipping DVDs from China. Of all things, what was it, Star Trek? Like DVD series. The volume used to sell for the entire, like all the seasons used to sell for $800, like at Best Buy. I never heard of anything like that. I
never even knew that.
But there's a wholesale company in China, you know, that sold the whole volumes for $100. And so, and it was the drop shipping. So you don't have to have any capital. So now I kind of like not completely ditched buying and reselling sneakers at the pace that I could. But I said, I need money to buy and resell sneakers. But to drop ship DVDs that are on demand, I don't need any money. And so once again, the branding came. A lot of people were selling it. You know, a lot of people were selling it. And I actually bought the list from a good friend of mine now, who happens to have his office or his like showroom for his brand, Justin Reed, in my same
Oh
building.
yeah, I know Justin Reed.
Yeah, so he's the one that sold me the list.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, we connect. It's, I mean, man, listen,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story.
I used to
but
share a studio in the same building. So
yeah,
yeah.
Wait, which
ETO Doors.
I was at? I'm there. That's where I'm
crazy.
there.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
come on, no, that's
Yeah,
crazy. So that's
yeah.
where I am now at ETO Doors,
Yeah.
and Justin's there too. He's
Yep.
he's got a beautiful showroom with all the
Yeah.
fly shit.
Bro, it's crazy.
He's always been ahead of the curve, but he's the
Yeah.
one that sold me the list, and we were actually. It's funny because we were friendly competitors, and
Yeah.
then we became friends.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Small world, by the way. Very small.
Too
world.
small, man. God, anytime you think the world is vast, and it is.
Yeah.
God reminds you, and look at this. We're sitting
Yeah.
across from each other, and we probably
Bro.
were divided by a couple of walls.
Yeah, literally. Now
Yeah.
that's amazing. I do want to ask too, like on a building a brand aspect, like the design part. I think that's also a world that we share too.
Yeah.
For me, I'm self-taught. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
YouTube University, but
Absolutely.
like my situation was one of those things where like I had the eye and was very creative, and I think somebody at Complex took notice of the stuff that I was designing, and they were like, "Yo, we want you to design for this company that we're working with," but literally I was like doing the bare minimum because I wasn't familiar. I wasn't the best at Photoshop or
Right.
Illustrator. I didn't have nobody to really show me, so I would utilize even tools like Canva and different stuff. And then they were like, "Yo, you do a great job, but we need you to really tap in so you can see your potential and different stuff." And I think that's where it took off for me.
Right.
What was your story as far as becoming a designer, a graphic designer?
I think the early building blocks were even before I touched, a pixel. I think they came from when I was in grade school. I had a teacher that I had for 3rd, 4th, and 6th grade named Miss Manning, and usually the curriculum is heavily focused, on math and science, right,
Yeah.
and language. Or in her case, she turned like that curriculum on its head, and instead it was art, at the top of the pyramid. And so
Wow.
that was rather unique, and
Yeah.
that obviously influenced me a lot, to expose us to a lot of things that we weren't naturally exposed to at that age, as it relates to art. It was emphasized as like a legitimate like career path, like it's something that you can do.
Yeah.
And their creativity was important. So
Yep.
those type of things are really important, to someone that's very young to get their gears turning. Like, oh, this is something we could do.
Yeah.
Aside from that, both my parents, artists in their own respect. They may never take credit for it or consider themselves that, but my dad draw his ass off. He's an amazing artist. He just never got the opportunity to like really, flex that muscle
Yeah,
and that talent as a career.
Yeah.
My mother, she did silk flower arrangements.
Okay.
And so I learned not only the art of putting something together tangible or from something intangible that's, in your mind, but also the hustle of
That's
selling
right.
that.
Yeah.
For my mom in particular. So
I
those
know
were like
how it be downtown
so
LA. They get busy,
exactly.
man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So those were the early building blocks.
Yeah.
And then my sister, who's 9 years older than I am, she majored in graphic design.
Yeah.
And so when she majored in graphic design, her and I, were like two peas in a pod. So I would tag along with her to her classes, and people probably assumed, because community college, varying ages from probably as young as
Yeah.
17 to as old as 70.
Yeah, facts.
So you never know how old your students are.
Yeah.
Not that my sister looked old, but
Yeah.
they probably thought I was her son or whatever, and I would
Yeah.
just tag along. Or I was her brother, but they
Yeah.
didn't think much of it. So
Yeah.
I would sit in the back of the class and, be in essence taking the course without the computer in front of me to practice. So
Player.
what I would do was absorb it, to influence me.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma, my maternal grandmother, blessed us immensely by buying us an iMac.
Wow.
And again, we're talking about 18 years ago, or no
Yeah.
more than that. We're talking of a lot.
Was
over
it one of the
20-something.
the different
Yeah, it was
color
the iMac.
joints?
It was the graphite special edition. We
Oh,
bought
man.
it. This was before the Apple Store. We bought it at Sears.
Yeah.
And so again, the household computer, was a PC.
Yep.
if you can afford it.
Yep.
Not a Mac. That
No,
was
it
at school
wasn't.
and
Yeah,
at
it wasn't,
universities,
yeah.
because it's an expensive computer. It was not as accessible as it is now. Still pricey, and you know, but you know, she blessed us with that, and so now having the computer at home, having the courses, you know, that I'm going to with my sister, all of those things started adding up, and I'm sure, you know. Your sponsor for your Adobe Creative Suite at the time was LimeWire.
Yep.
And so they sponsored my, you know, my Creative Suite, and I was off to the races. YouTube was starting to take off.
Yeah.
And just, you know, trial and error and trying to make sense of it. And I at the time, again, it aligns with me doing the drop shipping, the buying and reselling sneakers, and I'm like, I wonder if I could offer my design services on eBay. I don't know. I'm trying to see. I did a little bit of market research. I found a couple of people that did it.
Were doing it,
there. I don't know. Probably wasn't the best platform to do it, but it was a lane for me. Like, let me try it.
But you still found the hole.
Yeah, so I offered like logo design service there. I think I might have done it for like a nominal fee, like $50. And again, it was still at that time. We're talking. I was 13, 14 years old. Internet was still a little bit more anonymous. You know, there wasn't a profile picture attached to my eBay account. What there was a reputation. The reputation was good.
That's right.
And so, you know, gave me a fighting chance to, you know, try out my design skill set and as an actual service I could offer as a business. And my first client was a company out of Texas called Truett Architects. And so I remember the design, I think, was centered around the T square, the drafting square, because it's Truett.
Yep.
And I made several iterations of that, and we fine tuned it, went back and forth, and you know, they were happy as a client, and I was like, oh, I got a new lane, a new hustle.
Go. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how we got started, man. But you know, definitely it comes to show how influential the things are, you know, during your formative years.
Yeah.
From one, you know, a teacher that influenced the arts.
That's right.
Two, a sister, you know, or someone that in close proximity to you that is involved in something. In this case, as a graphic artist or studying graphic design. And then three, the resources and access to the resources early on to figure it out. And that's why the computer at the house was so critical.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, it opens up your whole world.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It opens up a whole different world.
So that, you know, when people say, you know, we need more resources in, you know, these communities and we need more of this, yes, you do.
Yep.
You know, because you can trace the story of a lot of people that were successful and look back at the things that they got to experience or, you know, taste and touch early on.
Yeah.
And it's like, no wonder.
Yeah.
No wonder. You know, there's only like a couple of anomalies that, you know, later on in life, you know, figure something out and then they just hit it off. But the most people, you look at the breadcrumbs and you look at all the clues in the beginning and then they had access to certain things that allowed them to start processing.
No, for sure. That's real good. And then it kind of goes into now the conversation of like the marathon clothing, like you, and also too with All Money In, you designed that logo. Correct?
The rebranded logo.
Rebranded logo.
So the original All Money In logo was designed prior to me. It was a armor truck.
Yep. I remember.
And that's a classic logo all in itself.
Yeah.
But we did a rebrand on that logo in 2012, 2013. Nipsey wanted, you know, a fresh take on the All Money In logo. Yeah. Something that could translate a little bit better across different mediums. Yeah. Because the armor truck is kind of robust. You know, it's a lot of detail. Yep. And we wanted just something that'll cut through a little bit better. And so with that logo in specific, I remember he's like, you know, somehow incorporate, you know, a dollar sign or something that related to currency. And so, you know, I had to tread very carefully because there's other, contemporaries that have dollar signs in their logo. So I didn't want it to feel like we're copying or borrowing from anyone. Yep. And so I knew that it had to be some type of symbol or monogram. I was trying to figure it out. I definitely couldn't be the full spelling or word mark because it just had too many characters. Yeah. And, you know, as we know in culture of hip hop, it's like you gotta have a jewel. If you're a jeweler, you don't want it to, you know, you want some iconic. So I think of the iconic, like, you know, logos of hip hop. We think of Def Jam, Wu-Tang, Rockefeller, Rough Riders. Yep. Cash Money.
Yep.
You know, those are just a couple to name a few. Bad Boy.
Yeah, Bad Boy.
And so I was like, man, I got a huge task at hand. You know, I would love for us to, you know, sit amongst these different brands and to bring something iconic for our team. And so I you know, I tried several different concepts. Nothing was really cutting through. And I think I was flipping through the channels and I saw it's like a red carpet event. It was on ETV. And I looked at the E Entertainment logo and I saw how it was an exclamation point. And I think either one part of it is the E or the negative space inside the exclamation point is the E. And okay. So that kind of inspired, like, all right, well, what can we do with this? So I said, how about we start off with like a really like chunky, symmetrical, you know, dollar sign.
Yeah.
And maybe I can cut into that and get, you know, initials. And that's just what I did. I looked at the, you know, the top bar and bottom bar of the dollar sign that cuts through all the way through.
Yeah.
I said that the top one could be an A, the bottom one could be an I, and the whole thing as a collective can be a dollar sign.
Yeah.
And so I put that together. I sent it over to Nib. I said, "What do you think?" He was excited about it.
Yeah.
He's like, "Throw a circle around it," and we threw a circle around it with a stroke that, you know, matched it aesthetically.
Yeah.
And there it was.
Man.
And then, obviously, even then, you know, it takes someone with the influence that Nipsey has to really like wear it on a consistent basis and, you know, and put out the right type of music for people to be familiar with it. So one of the strategies was the logo, and in terms of how it translated first in apparel, was exclusively available only to the team. So it was members only for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Namely, the Omnium hat.
Yeah,
you know,
I remember.
Which is the crown jewel of that brand of the Omnium logo. Like the Omnium hat was something that was really coveted. So he would wear it practically any interview, shows, anytime he was out and about. And everybody would want it.
And it was so recognizable because it was just a black hat with the white logo. Which, and also to that point, I think what was so beautiful, I think, is people who design and have an eye for branding. I loved how you used the old and then married it with the new when the All Money and logo was on the truck now. So it's like you're almost like people were familiar with the truck already, but now you put the new All Money.
You resurface it.
That was really
I don't know
good.
if I could say that was mine. That might have been Nip or Sam or the team as a collective. But I mean, to have an armored truck. That's amazing.
That's different. Yeah,
that's different.
Look, when I used to drive through there, you know, all the time, where you just
and
see
you see
it
it parked out on the parking lot.
And I just thought that was a great branding.
Huge.
I mean, just the storytelling, even. I would like to call it to just have that out there because it's like nobody's ever done it like that way. And also guerrilla marketing too. For real.
Oh, all the way. And the way we were able to keep an armored truck is you have to create a company that deals like in motion pictures. So you create a subsidiary
because I do remember hearing that there was a little like trouble or something around having the armored truck.
Yeah, but if you have a company that services film and television, it's okay.
Oh, dope. Okay.
So that's what we do.
I did not know that.
It's for film and television.
Yeah, that's perfect. So that's
legal.
Hey, look, that's a tip for people out there.
Loopholes.
Yeah,
loopholes, man.
Yeah.
Everybody, all the big dogs find the loopholes, you know? So long as you're not trying to be malicious or do something bad, which we're not. At the end of the day, you know, it's a staple of our brand. And namely, you know, like you said, it's guerrilla marketing. We would pull up to, you know, different events and then nightclub events, Nip's birthday party, the album release concert, you know, with the Omnium Truck. So definitely something that was highly recognizable.
Yeah.
But definitely ruffled a lot of feathers, you know, as it pertains to authority.
Yeah, for sure.
They couldn't process it. They're like,
what is going on? Yeah.
What is going on? An armored truck that doesn't belong to a company that transports
and it's
money
all
from
black too. You know how people
it's
feel,
intimidating.
Yeah.
It's intimidating, and where it's coming from. But you know, we don't mean no harm.
No. We just doing what.
Just trying to inspire so people could be like, man, that's
building
crazy.
a brand our own way.
Exactly.
No, that's really cool. One thing too, like with the marathon clothing, like I know, like I mean, I remember seeing people just lined up like crazy, website crashing,
for sure,
and all that. How did you being part of it, Black Sam and the rest of the squad, how was it for you guys continuing to push this brand forward while, the face of the brand not being present anymore? Like, how was that for you guys?
It's very challenging, because Nipsey was so influential in a lot of decision making. And obviously, he would help, steer the ship in a lot of things. But I think he gamed a lot of it, his team up. It wasn't like but everybody just, sat there and Nip, educated himself. He made sure to educate his team and, make sure that we were resourceful. And he built a team that, is adaptable. Now, does that mean we get it right all the time? No, definitely not. But we always try to think, like, what would Nip do? We try to, use, the past, to help guide us, towards the present and future.
Yeah.
And we try not to deviate too much from, what we feel like is in line with the brand.
That's right. That's right.
So, I mean, at the epicenter of the brand is inspiration, know? So, and it's about something that, is positive, something that's supposed to be, transformative for people. So we don't go too far away from that. Albeit we're a fashion brand, we don't try to do like catwalk looks or nothing like that.
Nothing couture.
Nothing couture like that. I mean, can't say never, but right now, we're taking baby steps and we're doing things that we feel, comfortable with. Obviously, one of the staples of the brand in terms of like a design is the Crenshaw logo.
Yeah.
That's what, kicked everything off for the marathon clothing.
Yeah.
Then we've added, several different designs that make sense and that feel like, in line with everything that we do. But I'll give you an example, right, as to how Nipsey has guided us, even, not being present, is with our collaboration with Puma. He that was his business venture.
Yep.
Puma approached him. They said, we want to do something with you. And he's like, cool, we could do something with me, but you got to also do something with my brand, Marathon Clothing.
Yeah.
At least once a year. And so that's also telling of Nip, because Nip was always very inclusive of his team.
Yep.
And that's a very rare form, because mostly people like to take credit or pat themselves in the back.
Yeah.
And it wasn't with that. He's like, either, my team comes with me or I'm not coming.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of leadership, that we miss, so deeply, because it's like, you don't get that from everybody.
Yeah.
And so that said, with the Puma collaboration, we had designed the very first drop that was supposed to be, TMC and Puma with Nip. We went to Boston, met with the Puma team. We went through all the details and made sure everything fit the right way, was the right material, was the right fit. And Nipsey guided us all the way through that. And then so when everything happened, Puma was gracious enough to continue the partnership and honor it, and did amazing things, to make sure that his kids were straight and taken care of, right? So we love Puma for that, and how adaptable they've been to our collaborative style, because we're very hands-on.
Yeah.
I like to say we're micromanagers in the best way possible because we care.
Yeah.
But like the Hustle Way drops that we drop almost like quarterly. Those are all pieces that were designed by Nipsey in conjunction and collaboration with Groovy Lou.
Okay.
And so all of those pieces, maybe we have like maybe 8 or 10 in the chamber.
Wow.
That were designed by Groovy for Nipsey, or in collaboration with Nipsey for Nipsey.
Yeah.
In like 2018, 19, and so we've dropped those, like pretty much every quarter, and that's the Hustle Way.
Yeah.
And so he guides us in that way in fashion, because they've already been created.
Yeah.
And so we get to, commemorate, him in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, one day at a time.
That's good.
The team puts their best foot forward, and we try to figure it out, the best way we can.
Now, Jorge, I want to ask you, because I know, like, on our channel, there's people who are interested in learning more about branding, and that's why I like to sit down with people who have conversations to them break down their stories or their thought and beliefs with branding. If someone is looking to start their own brand, of course, there's the information that I do share, but from your lens and your experience, someone who wants to start their own brand, whether it be personal or either a clothing brand, what would you say would be the first step?
I mean, I think first thing is just make sure you set your intention in something that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's
because
good.
if you go after the bag, first, like you can get completely misdirected,
Yeah.
and you'll easily give up because it's not something you're excited about, and there's no. It's not like a smooth ride, to the destination you're trying to arrive at. You're gonna hit a bunch of road bumps or roadblocks, and if you're passionate about something, you're willing to crash through those roadblocks and be persistent and continue through, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're not, and it was just about money, and you saw a lane that was a trend at the time, then the minute you hit a roadblock, you're
done.
veering into another direction. And if that's your character and your personality, you're gonna do that endless times,
Yeah, yeah.
until someone or something teaches you better and you understand it better.
Yeah.
But my thing is just, we have so many resources at our fingertips at any around the clock 24/7, and that's through the internet. And we touched on it. Nip and I, we used to call it the same thing, YouTube University.
Yeah, yeah.
You get the cutting edge information as ideas are being developed in real time.
Yeah, no, that's
which you
that's
couldn't
true.
say 30, 40 years ago. You had to wait for a book to be published.
Yeah.
But you could also look at, a lot of the OGs, like one of my favorites was George Lois. I love George Lois. I love to see, his thought process and a lot of his things that he's done, for MTV, for Lean Cuisine, for Tommy Hilfiger. Those things, definitely inspire me.
That's right.
And, as a creative, you just got to be resourceful because, you're tasked with, working with the intangible a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah.
And making it something, that lives in people's minds.
That's right. And I think another point to that, too, is because that's something I share with clients as well, is like, man, what story are you trying to tell? And what is your story? Like,
Right.
Or have you figured out how you want to tell it yet? Because I feel like a lot of times, like, a lot of our brands, they're hidden within a story that we've lived or experienced or trying to tell.
Everyone has one. You just have to be authentic.
That's right.
That's it. You can't try to be something that you think will be more appealing to others. You just got to be yourself.
Exactly.
And there's going to be people, that identify with that and that sticks with, and there's going to be people that don't. You can't please the crowd.
You can't. I feel like that's the wrong approach anyway.
No. I mean, we have a saying, within our brand's ecosystem, and that's two sayings. One is that there's riches and niches.
Yep.
And the other one is also, as you're hustling and you're grinding, slow motion is better than no motion.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's a good one.
Because people
right there.
don't like when things are slow. People want things fast.
Yeah, they do.
And we want it to go well all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's slow.
Yeah.
But there's people got no motion.
Yeah.
So which side you want to sit on?
No, that's real.
I say with slow motion right now.
Facts.
Eventually, we'll catch our balance and we'll get some rhythm, and we'll catch the momentum that we want.
It's about the marathon, right?
That's it, man. That's it.
Literally. Yeah.
That's it. It's learning how to take, the bumps on the road and staying on course.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. How do you plan to expand your brand? And before you answer, the reason why I asked this is because I remember, I think I read a post or you mentioned it about you and Nip laughing about him saying Peniche's on the wall.
Yeah.
Him and you talking about having a gallery.
For sure.
So that's one thing I want to ask you about. But outside of that, too, how you plan on expanding your personal brand as well?
Yeah, that's one thing that, I'm always like battling with, because I help carry other brands, namely, our marathon brand, and I have such a huge responsibility to that.
Yeah.
My personal brand, I think, as a photographer or storyteller and designer, I think that's something that I definitely have to dedicate a little bit more time to.
Yeah.
I think early in my career, I did that. I was hyper focused on that, and that was good. And that gave me, opened up doors and opportunities. Like I used to be, my own publicist, and I used to do interviews with publications domestically and overseas, from varying different, categories, of the, cover like a full spectrum. I found a book. I don't know how I found it. I don't know if it was, I think I might have found it online. It was like a directory of publications around the country, around the world.
Oh, wow.
So you could go like to a fashion section, and these are all the publications
Wow.
from A to Z. And so had nothing but time,
Yeah,
hunger. I still do have more hunger, but not all the time.
Yeah.
But I went through them and, shared, my portfolio, my website, and saw if there was any interest in, covering me or interviewing me.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the 100 shots or the 1,000 shots that I took, 20 or 30 come back. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm published in, people in Australia or in Japan or in Ecuador or in Mexico or different states, around the U.S. So, that I used to do that a lot more than I do now. I think the next building block for me is definitely finally published the marathon book that Nip and I are working on. It's something that I think we'll do with the release of Nipsey's docuseries. That's kind of the ongoing convo. That'll be a good time to put that out because something that we worked on hand in hand.
Yeah.
I would love to I have a documentary idea that, I would love to do maybe under Marathon Films. Definitely want to get a lot more back into portrait photography with artists. It's just that, I got to be resourceful with my time and, our brands, require a lot of, my energy and time and attention. So
Of course.
at one point, I think I'll veer back into that, but on a daily basis, I'm designing freelance. So, and I made the focus logos because that's where I feel like I could deliver the best and without, watering down my brand.
That's right. No, that's good. And then one last question for you. It's from my barber.
Okay.
Shout out to my barber, D. Witters.
Yeah.
He was cutting my hair today, and we were just talking, and he was like, he wanted me to ask you, how do you keep going, with everything that you have going on? What is that thing that keeps you going, that battery in your back with, all these things that you have going on around you, and also wins that you and the team collectively. How do y'all keep going?
I mean, for me personally, and then I'll go into the collective.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think it's the immigrant spirit.
Yeah.
Undocumented immigrant spirit at that.
Yep.
You understand what that is.
I can relate to that, yeah.
It's like you got to see your parents come here and like literally have no promise of anything.
Yeah.
But make it happen every day. So those type of things you owe it, to that sacrifice.
Yeah, that's
of
true.
your parents. One. Two, I think innately, aside from being immigrant, if you want to like dial in a little bit more for me, I'm Mexican. So, one of the many stereotypes that is true is that we work our asses off. We bust our ass. So that's something that is translated, in what I do. It's like I have this insatiable hunger and hustle, to get it and make things happen. I think as a creative, you find opportunities where others don't too. So imagine pairing the hustle with finding, being able to see opportunities that others don't. I mean, sky's the limit with that.
Yeah.
Aside from that, my family, my wife hustles hard.
Yeah.
I want to set the example for my kids that, that we got, you gotta go hard, you gotta go for the gusto.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings that came from, one of my early mentors is Ben Baller. He says, "This is not your practice life."
And
so if you operate with that,
That's
mantra in mind, it's like it's not your practice life. You gotta go hard, and you gotta seize the opportunity. And also, at 35, having seen how life can go for others and different, earlier, it also, gives you a certain, awareness and conscious to, the privilege of living, the privilege of being able to serve others, creatively, or serve others, or just maybe influence someone, in a positive.
That's right.
And so that's what it, keeps me going.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, with Nip, I owe him so much.
Yeah.
In the sense that he gave me so much opportunity. Invested so much in me. We invested so much in each other. So it's only right. Like there's literally, I got a chip on my shoulder. It's big.
Yeah.
And it's like, the things that I want. I always thought, even prior to having kids, that I don't know if I'll be able to cover all the ground I want to cover in a lifetime. And that's why I got 2 boys, because they could cover it. And then God willing, they have their families and they can, continue to build it.
Keep that legacy going. Yeah.
So that's me, individually. Then as a collective, I mean, our inspiration is, everything that we've built as a collective, and the chip on the shoulder that we carry for our brothers, our fallen brothers with Nip and Fats.
Yeah.
They put so much blood, sweat, and tears, for the brand and for the team to be in the position that, we're in, that it would be a huge disservice to do anything less.
Yeah.
And our goal is, to build this and hand it off to, the kids, and then the kids take it. God willing, they take it to the next level because they got more skill sets and more knowledge and more resources.
Yeah.
And so, that's what pushes us. I want Fats kids and Nips kids, to be proud and them being able to see things, that their dads did, and this was because of their hard work and their sacrifice. So,
No, that's good.
Those are the things that every day you're thinking like, this is why we go.
Yeah. The why.
Exactly.
No, that's perfect. Well, Jorge, man, thank you so much for your time, brother.
I appreciate you for having me, man.
This
it was a pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you for breaking things down as far as like your story, marathon, your relationship with Nip, and just branding and from your experiences and your lens too. So I think that our viewers done got a lot of gems today.
Man, it was my pleasure, man.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So also too, before we end this, where can people find you? How can they get in contact with you? Follow and find out about things that you got going on.
Sure. Right now I'm developing my personal website, like revamping it, but eventually it'll be up.
Yeah, it's all
and
good.
that's my name, jorgepeniche.com.
Okay.
Other than that, easiest way to reach me is Instagram.
Okay.
Okay. And that's at Jorge Peniche, my name. That's
got
it.
you. And we'll make sure it's all down there.
I'm easy to access.
Yeah.
I'm not hiding from nobody.
Nah, fact. That's true, man.
And for those who have my number, I've never changed it in the last 15 years. So I owe nobody no bread. I haven't done anybody wrong.
Yeah.
You can reach me anytime.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you.
Well, guys, this has been Branded Like a Pro. I'm your host, Denis Boateng. And you guys make sure that you subscribe. Leave your comments down below, any questions that you may have. And this has been an amazing episode. Make sure that you like it, too, and share it. Thank you so much. Peace.